Hello, everyone. This is James McKinley coming to you from the McMaster Health Forum in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada for our latest Queen Elizabeth Scholarship webinar. An agenda for today's webinar, I'll tell you a little bit about the McMaster Health Forum, a little bit about the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Program, and then a little bit about the program here at the Forum. Then I'll introduce you to Grace, who is our presenter for today. The McMaster Health Forum aims to be the leading hub for improving health outcomes through collective problem solving. We harness information, convene stakeholders, and prepare action-oriented leaders, and act as an agent of change by empowering stakeholders. The Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Program, or formerly called the Canadian Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Scholarship, is managed through a unique partnership of Universities Canada, the Rita Hall Foundation, Community Foundations of Canada, and Canadian universities. This program is made possible with financial support from the Government of Canada, provincial governments, and the private sector. The purpose of the program is to activate a dynamic community of young global leaders across the Commonwealth to create lasting impacts both at home and abroad through cross-cultural exchanges encompassing international education, discovery and inquiry, and professional experiences. The Queen Elizabeth Scholarship here at the Forum is one of 20 that were awarded in the second round of scholarships across the country. This program runs from 2018 to 2021. The focus of the Forum's version of the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Program is strengthening health and social systems. Our scholars will contribute to strengthening health and social systems and become part of our large and growing network of health and social system leaders. Our original Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Program involved hosting 14 international scholars here at McMaster. We also sent 3 scholars abroad to work on their master's work. We also had a very large group of 44 interns who we sent to our international partners in Commonwealth countries around the globe. Our current Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Program at this point has hosted 4 international scholars, and we have sent 7 interns abroad, one of whom is Grace, who is our presenter today. Grace is an undergraduate student in the Bachelor of Health Sciences program at McMaster University, and she's just finishing up that degree. Her internship with the New South Wales Ministry of Health offered her the chance to contribute to the translation of research evidence into health policy. During her internship, Grace sought to develop a stronger understanding of health systems in terms of governance arrangements, management, and delivery of health and social services. So it's my pleasure to turn over the presentation to Grace.
Thank you, James, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace Zhou. And as James graciously mentioned, I will be speaking today about my QES internship experience at the New South Wales Ministry of Health in Sydney, Australia. So I'll start off my presentation with an overview of my QES experience, then introduce the New South Wales Ministry of Health and the projects that I was involved with. I'll then end off my presentation by talking about some of the things I did during my free time in Australia. And lastly, hopefully provide some interesting facts I learned while in Australia that might be helpful for any future QES scholars doing their internships there. So my QES experience officially began when I boarded my flight from Toronto, Ontario to Sydney, New South Wales. The flight lasted an incredibly long 22 hours, so needless to say, when I landed, I was more than excited and ready to begin. So for those who may not be familiar, Sydney is located in New South Wales, which is a state on the east coast of Australia, and is the most populous state out of all the 6 states. As you can see on this slide, I lived in the suburb of St. Leonards, which is where the New South Wales Ministry of Health building is located. I actually lived quite close to work, as it was approximately only a 5-minute walking distance. And an interesting fact that I wanted to mention is I would walk by a plaza called the Forum every day to and from work, which I've put a picture there on the bottom left. And for those of you who might not know, I work at the McMaster Health Forum in Hamilton, Ontario. So I just thought that was a super cool coincidence. And I guess I never felt too far away from home, despite being a distance of 14,000 kilometers away. As I mentioned, I worked at the New South Wales Ministry of Health, which operates under a slightly different health system than the one in Ontario. So I thought it would be beneficial to first start off by giving a short general overview of the Australian healthcare system. Australia's healthcare system is unique to that of Canada's in that it operates as a 2-tiered healthcare system, meaning it comprises of both public and private providers, settings, and supporting mechanisms. Public sector health services are provided by all levels of government, including local, state, territory, and the Australian government, while private sector health service providers include things like private hospitals, medical practices, and pharmacies. However, almost 70% of health expenditure in Australia still remains funded by the government. The Australian government contributes 2/3 of this, and the state, territory, and local governments contribute the other third. The New South Wales Ministry of Health is responsible for funding and delivering a range of these health services for close to the 8 million people who reside in the state. New South Wales healthcare system is known more broadly as NSW Health, and here you can see pictured the structure that NSW Health operates under. It's the biggest public health system in Australia, with more than 230 public hospitals and over 100,000 staff. So the healthcare system is managed by the Secretary of NSW Health and the Minister of Health, both of whom I had the privilege of meeting and speaking with during my internship. Together, they're responsible for the local health districts and specialty networks, the pillars, and the statewide health services. I think the picture's not available, but here was supposed to be a more zoomed in photo illustrating the number of health service branches that operate under New South Wales Health and the Ministry of Health. So during my internship, I worked in the sector of population and public health, which you can see on the far left, but it's not there anymore, but that's okay. So basically, the population and public health branch is responsible for things like population epidemiology and data, health protection, drug and alcohol services, Aboriginal health, oral health, and health and medical research and innovation. So during my time at the New South Wales Ministry of Health, I had the honor and privilege of working on several different projects, which I've listed on this slide. So these include drafting a paper on the evaluation of health strategies, developing an exit process framework for the New South Wales Public Health Training Program, doing 2 program evaluations, organizing a stakeholder event, conducting several literature scans, populating a tool called ISAT, and assisting with any other ministry projects that came up during my time. However, for the sake of the presentation, I'll only be focusing on 4 of these. One of the major projects that I had the privilege of working on was developing and drafting a conceptual framework paper on the evaluation of public health strategies. The paper would also act as a key resource for the creation of a new guide within the NSW Population Health Guidance Series, which you can see pictured on the left. So normally methods for evaluating health interventions are widely described in literature, but these methods are commonly based on the assumption that what's being evaluated is a single intervention rather than a suite of policies and programs that make up health strategies. So I worked together with my colleagues at the ministry to draft a paper that was able to identify key considerations and provide a framework for a more systemic approach to evaluating these health strategies. It was our hopes that our paper will be published later this year and be able to contribute to the literature on public health strategy evaluations and evidence-informed decision-making. On this slide, I've included what the general process for the project looked like. So I began by working with my colleagues and the Director of Evidence and Evaluation to develop and refine the scope of the paper. We then reviewed the published literature, which was actually very limited, as well as any case studies of evaluations that were conducted by the ministry. We then analyzed these findings to propose key considerations and a possible model for evaluation. And while writing the paper, we continuously sought feedback from our different colleagues, as well as experts on the topic. I was also involved in 2 other projects, which involved working closely with the Aboriginal Health Evaluation and Evidence team to develop dissemination products for the evaluation of 2 Aboriginal health programs, which were Quit for New Life and the Aboriginal Qualifications Pathway by the Education Centre Against Violence. So because both of these projects involved very similar tasks, I'll just be focusing on Quit for New Life, which was a smoking cessation initiative that aimed to reduce smoking in pregnant women having an Aboriginal baby. As you can see in this slide, there has been improvement in smoking rates among pregnant women in New South Wales in recent years, as evident by the smoking rate reducing from 53% in 2005 to 44% in 2015. However, as you can see by the bottom 2 statistics, the disparities in smoking rates between pregnant Aboriginal women and pregnant non-Aboriginal women are still quite large, which is about a difference of 45% to 80%. Our evaluation of the Quit for New Life program consisted of 2 phases, including an implementation review and outcome evaluation, which looked at factors like implementation and uptake, as well as a case study analysis of 3 LHDs that had promising models of implementation. The evaluation had a mixed methods approach, meaning that we examined several different pieces of data, including program monitoring data and interviews with stakeholders and Quit for New Life participants. We overall found that Quit for New Life was perceived as an overall positive and worthwhile program, which was great. So for the evaluation, we ultimately produced 3 publication pieces, including a summary report, a snapshot report, which was basically a shorter version and one that was targeted toward the general public, as well as an internal presentation slide deck. The third project I had the honor of being involved with was developing an exit process framework for the public health and biostatistics training programs. These programs were established in 1990 as a broader strategy to develop a skilled and more flexible public health workforce. The program offers as a 3-year training program for public health professionals, and it's widely recognized and accredited in New South Wales. However, it was identified that there was a need to develop a more formal exit interview process in accordance with their current policy context. So the exit process would consist of an online survey and an in-person interview, and hopefully would serve to improve the functioning of the program by providing useful information on any strengths or areas of improvement. For this project, I worked with my colleagues to identify relevant public sector and ministry policies and guidelines to develop and refine questions for the online survey and in-person interview, as well as write up an internal report that outlined the implementation plan. And it's really exciting to see what you've contributed come into action, because the ministry will be conducting the first trial of this exit process with this year's cohort. And lastly, I helped to organize the Sax Institute Research Action Awards and the graduation ceremony for the Public Health and Biostatistics Training Program. This is definitely the more fun and social project, as I got the opportunity to collaborate with the Sax Institute, to liaise with the Office of the Secretary of NSW Health, to prepare an event brief, and as well get the opportunity to shadow the Ministry of Health, Media, and Communication team. I was also incredibly honored to be able to attend the event and hear addresses on health policy and research translation by a number of top researchers. So I also stepped out of my comfort zone and took the initiative to speak with the people around me about my QES experience, as well as the work that I do at the Health Forum. So pictured here are very candid photos from the event. So on the far left is a photo of me with Ms. Elizabeth Koff, who is the Secretary of NSW Health, and Mr. Andrew Millay, who is the Director of Evidence and Epidemiology at CEE. The middle top photo is me speaking with Professor Sally Redman, who is the CEO of Sax Institute, as well as Ms. Sarah Thackway, who is Executive Director of the Center of Epidemiology and Evidence. And to the far top right is me with Professor Don Nutbeam, who is the Senior Advisor at the Sax Institute and a Professor of Public Health at the University of Sydney. So definitely a really amazing opportunity and a great event as well. And now, last but not least, I wanted to share some of the many photos I took during my time in Australia. Here, you can see some of the photos I took during the work trips I had for the internship. You can see many of my colleagues from the ministry pictured here, who took me sightseeing in Wollongong, which is pictured at the bottom right, as well as our many photos of eating. As you can see, we all love food. At the top, you'll also see photos of the University of Sydney and the UNSW campus, which is where I did many of my trainings for the ministry. On this slide, I've chosen some photos from my weekend travels. So during my QES internship, I really wanted the opportunity to explore Sydney and its culture. So starting from the left to the right, you can see I hiked up Palm Beach, where there was this incredible view of these 2 bodies of water meeting. I also visited the New South Wales Government House, which is at the bottom left, which is the official house and office of all the current and past NSW governors. I also toured a number of museums and art galleries. I saw the cutest koala. I climbed up Blue Mountains. I visited the Opera House, and so forth. I also saw sculptures by the sea, which is one of the pictures near the middle, which is something that was highly recommended to me by my colleagues. So that was really cool as well. Last but not least, I also decided to go scuba diving with sharks, which is something I never expected myself to do. But I thought, hey, I'm in Australia on my QES, so why not? So I did it. And it was definitely one of the best things I could have ever done, and I would absolutely recommend it to anyone who does want to try it. During my dive, I actually saw a number of different sharks, including the Great Nurse, Webgon, as well as Port Jacksons. I also found I got to keep a real shark tooth that had fallen to the ground, which apparently is a very rare thing to find. So that was also very incredible. But I think during the scuba diving dive, it was also an experience that opened my eyes to the number of shark species that are critically endangered around the world, and the need for us to create additional protective measures to be able to halt these declines. To wrap up my presentation for today, I thought it would be nice to end with talking about some of the interesting things I learned in Sydney for any future QES scholars who might be traveling there. So, for example, if you do want to travel, especially to somewhere far, like the iconic Blue Mountains, it may be good to do it on a Sundays because of the fare cap, which I think is approximately around $2 for the entire day, so it's definitely worthwhile. I also found downloading the Opal Transit app, which is the transit system, to be really helpful for navigation. Another thing is that Sydney drives and travels on the left, so definitely be cautious about that. Personally, for me, it definitely took some getting used to. I also found spring in Sydney to be quite chilly, so I would prepare layers just in case. I would also say that there are subtle differences between the way that we talk, in that Australians might prefer to say Macca's rather than McDonald's, and they love to say things like cheers. If you're a coffee lover, it's definitely a great place to go because they have an amazing coffee culture, so I would definitely take advantage of that. And last but not least, Sydney also offers a number of free walking tours, which is something that I used a lot so that I was able to get to know my surroundings a little bit better when I first arrived. All in all, Australia definitely has a lot to offer and is home to some of the nicest human beings that I've ever met, so I'm sure anyone going there for the QES will have the best time of your life. I wanted to end my presentation today by giving my sincerest thank you to all the people and organizations who made my QES internship possible. Thank you to the NSW Ministry of Health for hosting my internship, to the QES Scholarship Foundation, to the McMaster Health Forum, to McMaster University, and last but not least, to James McKinley. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Grace. Looks like you had a lot of fun, a lot of really interesting pictures. I do have a question about one of those pictures in a minute, but if anyone online would like to ask any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box. I'll ask you first, Grace, the more collegial question, I guess. So you had a chance to work with the Ministry of Health in as you noted, a different healthcare system than what we have here in Canada or even in Ontario. Is there something about their system that you thought was really interesting or beneficial that you think might be translatable here back in Canada or in Ontario that might be a benefit for us if we were to give it a try?
I guess one of the main things that I noticed was quite different, or I guess it was the advantage of the New South Wales Ministry of Health system, is that they had a really great, strong focus on Aboriginal health, which is something that I know Canada does really well in, but all of the sectors in the New South Wales health system had a focus on Aboriginal health. So even if it was epidemiology and data, they had a team that focused specifically on Aboriginal health, and I think that was something that Canada could definitely look forward to, and something that maybe Canada could adapt in the near future.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. Your work at the forum, as for those who don't know, Grace is the forum research assistant for a number of years. you had the opportunity to learn a lot of the things that the forum does, from event management all the way to synthesis work, and it looks like you were able to use a lot of those skills in your time with the New South Wales Ministry. Was there something skill-wise that was new to you that you had to adapt to once you started working with them?
That's a really good question. As you mentioned, a lot of the skills that I used during my internship were ones that I learned during my time at the forum. And if I had to say something, I would maybe say the fact that at the ministry, I worked with a number of different teams and a number of different colleagues. So meaning that at one time I would work on several different projects, working with several different departments, and that was definitely something that I had to get used to, and being able to time manage and effectively finish all the projects on time.
Great, thank you. A message from one of the viewers online. What is your favorite memory from your QES experience?
I think I would have to say scuba diving with sharks. As I said in my presentation, it was something that I never imagined myself doing, but I saw a flyer for it, and I thought, why not? So I did it, and it's definitely one of the most memorable experiences from my QES.
I'll be honest, I've never at any point said, why not, when it came down to swimming with sharks, but I've also never been offered the opportunity, so maybe my mind would change. About the shark swimming, was that out in the ocean, or was that in a tank somewhere?
It wasn't. It was controlled, so it was in a tank, yes.
Okay.
I don't think I'm yet ready to be out in the ocean.
If it was, you really scored, because there was a lot of sharks around you, and I thought that they knew the perfect spot to take you if that were the case.
Yeah, it was a really big tank, so I mean.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions from anyone online? Last call? I'll take that as a no. All right, so that's all the questions that I have for you, Grace. So thank you again very much for taking the time to tell us about your experiences today. We really do appreciate it. We'll end off today's presentation with a thank you for everyone. A first link on the screen right now is information about our Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Program here at the McMaster Health Forum. If you have any interest in it, please go to that link. It'll tell you all the information you need to know. In this presentation or other presentations and webinars that we do from our scholars, please visit that second link. We have a list of any upcoming scholars' presentations, also links to their previous ones as they've been uploaded to YouTube. And the third link is a website to our blogs that our QE scholars write. Some of them do, some of them don't, but that's where we house them when the time comes. Please follow us on social media using the hashtag QE Scholars to find out all about Queen Elizabeth scholarships from across the country, as well as the McMaster Health Forum. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you very much, Grace, for your presentation, and we will connect with you again when our next scholars return home. So thank you very much.
Thank you.